Are you responsible for a software development team? Is your team an Agile development team? Have you ever had a difference of opinion with your team? Or even a full-blown argument? Were you by any chance discussing an important deadline? The world of business is full of deadlines, but deadlines don't necessarily compute for an Agile team. But there may be a way for both sides to get what they need. Hi, this is Gary. Welcome to Development That Pays. Picture the scene: a small conference room at the BBC in White City. In attendance, a development team, an Agile coach, and a business manager. The subject under discussion: a new website for BBC Worldwide. My memory of the first part of the meeting is hazy, but I have a very clear recollection of what happened after the business manager asked this question. When will the website be finished? It was clear he wasn't looking for an answer like next spring. He was looking for a date. We turned to our Agile coach for the official answer. But Mr. Agile refused to answer the question. Mr. Business was taken aback. Really? Surely you had some idea. After all, the people in the room had previously built several similar websites. If anyone knew how long it would take to create a website very like the ones we'd already built, it was the people sitting in the room. But Mr. Agile would not be moved. He could not, and indeed would not, commit to a date. Mr. Business was incredulous. Didn't we realize that launching a website is a bigger thing than just building a website? Editors need to be hired, copy needs to be authored, launch partners need to be engaged. We absolutely need a date. But Mr. Agile would not be moved. The rest of us sat in silence, staring at our shoes. The argument between Mr. Business and Mr. Agile troubled me, and not just because it was toe-curlingly awkward. Here's my dilemma. I agreed with Mr. Business. I could see that there was a need for a launch date. I also agreed with Mr. Agile. Launch deadlines and the Agile approach don't really mix. Can the two really coexist? At the time, I wasn't sure that they could, but now I think maybe that they can. Let's take a look. I don't know much about Mr. Business's background, but it's not much of a stretch to say that he was used to working to deadlines. He did, after all, work for a major broadcaster. Programs go out at specific times on specific dates. There is zero flexibility on time. So he's used to projects that start slowly and ramp up, and no doubt ramp up rather crazily right before the broadcast date. That's a graph of effort, but what about a graph of value? More specifically, customer value. Well, for almost all of the project, the value to the customer is zero. It's only towards the end of the project that all of the elements come together to create a program. What about an Agile project? Well, it might be a while before anything worthwhile can be released, so the line goes along at zero for a while. But it's not long until something is released, a very bare-bones website, for example. Just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that a bare-bones website is released to the public, but at this point, and at any point after this, we have something that could be released to the public. At this early stage, the potential customer value, let's call it that, would be low, say 10%. But this value increases as the team adds new features. One of the key tenets of Agile is to work on the most important features first. That is, the features that add the most customer value. As a result, the value curve increases quickly as these high-value features are added. We then enter a phase of diminishing returns as the low-value features follow them along. We've ended up with two very different value curves. But can we reconcile them? Can we present a picture that both Mr. Business and Mr. Agile can live with? Let's superimpose the lines. Clearly this is bad news. The launch is happening way too early. What about this case? Well, the value level is up, but things are changing quickly. It would be tough to predict the level of value on any particular date. What about here? Well, this really is the sweet spot, and not just because the level of customer value is high. The curve here is almost flat, meaning that the level of customer value is changing slowly. In words that Mr. Business would understand, the risk of launching in this period is high, whereas the risk of launching in this period is low. Mr. Agile would never have committed to finishing the website on a specific date, but he could have drawn a fairly accurate value curve, and Mr. Business could have used it to fix a launch date. Where there was conflict, there could have been harmony. Talk to you next time.